Yeah, you sound pretty good. All right, we're live. So here we are, episode 3 for Misfits and
Episode 4.
Miscreants. Episode 4. Sorry, I can't count.
Yes.
And if you're watching this, if you're one of the few have been sent this link, we'd appreciate you subscribing to our channel. We don't know where it's going to go. We have no idea. And if you want to put any comments in there, we'd really appreciate it down below. Feel free to do that. And if you have any ideas for future topics, let us know. Because anybody who knows Henry, and Henry knows a lot of people, I've known Henry 29 years now, and every conversation I have with this guy is interesting. It just goes down these rabbit holes. A never-ending flow of subjects, all of interest, it seems. So. And one subject that we seem to always get into, and I want to start off talking about this one, is movies. Because we had a conversation the other day about Star Wars, and you said you didn't like Star Wars.
That is correct. It's not that I don't like it. I just don't care. To me, it's overrated. I watched it when I was a teenager and a young man when all that stuff came out. And yeah, I was entertaining, but I give it a C+ when it comes to movies, personally. It's all right, but I don't know. I think the characters were just annoying. I thought this may sound really shallow and stupid, but Princess Leia had I didn't like her hairstyle, and she seemed like a really annoying individual. And the only guy I liked was Chewbacca. You know, Han Solo was too cool. He's just one of those guys who's just too cool. You know, cool in the gang. You know, like, and the other guy. The one that Mark Hamill played, what was his character? I don't know. Anyway.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker. Okay, Luke Skywalker. Yeah, all-American boy. Like, who cares? You know.
I thought he was kind of too wholesome looking, but I liked the series. I got caught up in the whole, but I wasn't a super fan or anything.
Sure.
I'd just go see it because it was cool to go see that at the theaters, and it was all right.
Yeah, it's entertaining when you're younger. I guess if you're a teenager or if you're younger, it's so extravagant and you know, like, whoa, this is amazing. But I don't know. I love sci-fi, but for some reason that movie just didn't sit well with me.
It didn't win any major awards, did it?
I don't know if it won an Academy Award. If anything, you figure it would win an Academy Award for special effects, but
at the time,
I don't know. I don't know if it did or not.
I don't think it did. Maybe we're wrong. If it did, it did, but it didn't sweep. And when you're talking about cinema at a highest level, it's certainly followed the storytelling mythologies, and that's really it was a Western in the space Western. Really, is what it was. Good versus evil, classic story.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can't go wrong with that, and they made a lot of money. Obviously, George Lucas, it set his career. But yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. But it leads me to my next question about movies, and I know you know a lot about movies because you've sort of studied it a lot in your life, both formally and informally. But when you look at movies like Star Wars and other movies throughout the history of movies, what makes some movies timeless? Now, when I say timeless, I mean timeless in the sense that it becomes culturally relevant and all kinds of memes come out of it. And, for example, Scarface. There's all kinds of... Scarface was a really intense movie. But there was all you just references, cultural references, memes, what's the Tony was the main character played by Al Pacino.
Tony Montana.
And what was his line? You never get high in your
say
own
hello
supply.
To my little friend.
Say hello to my little friend.
Also, first you get the money, then you get the girls or something like that, you know.
Yeah. But anyways, it was culturally relevant as a movie is concerned. And you look at a lot of movies like, let's say, for example, The Matrix.
Yes.
All kinds of references. Timeless. The Godfather.
Correct. Yes, yes.
And you look at movies like Avatar. Remember when Avatar came out 7 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah,
Remember how popular it was? I've never seen a movie
it
that
was.
popular in my life.
It was very popular.
And but it seemed to have just passed like a fart in the wind. There's no
Yeah, I don't
references to it.
know. I don't see too many Avatar references. Not really. Well, actually, I haven't. Don't recall seeing anything. Um, uh, all I can think is that movies that if they have to appeal to a lot of people, they got to strike a chord or something in a lot of people on a large level, and maybe that's why they become cultural. What's the word?
Icons. Let's call them
Icon.
icons.
Yes, icon.
Relevancies.
Yes, the popularity of it and everything. Even like Raiders of the Lost Ark was
Mm-hmm.
very big when it
Mm-hmm.
came out, and I don't know if that's really culturally or if there's any memes or anything like that, but probably not as much as Star Wars. I think there's a little bit of references to them once in
Yeah.
a while.
Well, I'm going to
Like
go with
very
Raiders and Star Wars as genres where they
yes.
busted through with new levels of whatever genre they were into, and they did a pretty damn good job at it. And there's that. But whether or not the movie really affected us and touched us on a deep, deep level, the way The Godfather, both 1 and 2, did.
What Jaws 2 is not Jaws 2, just the whole Jaws franchise,
Yeah.
especially the first one, was a real like it touched a lot of people because it went into the base fears of people. They don't want to get eaten by a shark, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very primitive, brings a primitive reaction out of people.
Yeah. So I like a movie that captivates. Doesn't necessarily have to be super entertaining. Well, if it's captivating, if it has a captivating story, even if it's a drama and it's kind of slow going, like a recent movie would be Phantom Thread. I don't think you've seen that one.
I haven't seen it. No.
It just blew me away, and it's the kind of movie that I personally thought about for weeks afterwards, and then I had to go on Google and Reddit and read about it and try and get into some discussions and see what was being said about it, because there's so much symbolism and there's so many under subplots and subplots and stories that branch off into different avenues, and it's really quite fascinating. And if at the very least it makes you question, it's done a good job. But if it's merely entertained, then it's, they got your money and that's it. They'll probably get you when part 2 comes out if they do a okay job with that.
Well, I've never seen The Phantom. I'd like to see it. One movie which I think is heading towards or will be part of the icon history is Joker.
You think so, eh?
Yeah, I watched that last year, and that hit a chord with me. Anybody, well, I think most people get screwed over one way or the other in life, but this guy, the main character who who becomes the Joker, this guy didn't stand a chance. A lot of bad things happened to him,
Yeah.
and in some ways, I can kind of relate to him a little bit, just a little bit. Like I haven't had the amount of tragedy that this guy
No,
had.
he's had a lot.
Oh my God! But there was a real uproar when the movie came out, especially amongst the left. They were upset because I'm going down the politically incorrect rabbit hole here, but it showed the plight of the loser or the white man. Like this
Yeah.
guy's he wasn't your typical victim. Like today you got different races, different, sexes, disability, people have disabilities, all sorts of stuff. They are like victims, but you don't see too much about the white man being a victim. Obviously, there are white victims. White men are victims as well.
I don't. Yeah.
So he was sort of like the first white male victim.
Yeah.
And also, people were upset that it was going to start off like an incel rebellion, because incel is involuntary celibate. For those of you who don't know, it's a person, a male, who's unable to get a sexual partner or romantic partner due to either he has no social skills or he's really hideous or just
And
you know.
he's
Oh,
angry at the world, and he's
that's right.
blaming.
Yes.
You could categorize the Joker character in there too,
Yeah, he is an incel in a way. Yeah,
in
he
a
is.
way, but I'm not going
Yeah.
to say wholly.
No,
I'm going to
no.
say partly,
Yes.
because this character, I don't want to give too many spoiler alerts in case you haven't
Yeah.
seen it, but I agree with everything you're saying about it. It's a mind-blowing film, and the fact that it touches on the white male who's 30 something, and he's typically supposed to be the oppressor. By the way, just let me take a little sidetrack for a
Sure.
second here.
Sure.
Whenever I go to the movies, and I go to a lot of movies with my wife, and there's always previews and
Mhm.
commercials, and I keep Joe, and she rolls her eyes at me, and she's like, "Oh, be quiet," you know. I'm like, you hardly see any white males either in commercials, and for that case in a lot of movies. You'll notice in the hero movies, it's all women now. I'm not
Mhm.
making a criticism, I'm just pointing it out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and putting it alongside what you're saying, in that the left didn't like the fact that the Joker was this white male, and the white male is supposed to be the oppressor, especially when we're talking about uh, just general the way things are going on the left, culturally speaking, and with feminism, radical feminism. The Joker.
Yeah. And this guy, if this guy was the epitome of the victim. Oh my God, I won't say anymore, but
Connected to his mom. That's a topic we should talk about
yeah,
someday, is the mom, sort of the anti-hero, um, the devouring mother, which is a myth throughout history, you know, mythologies, something I've always been fascinated by, play a big role in our stories and in our art, and they're symbols. They have a lot of meaning. And the devouring mother, like Hansel and Gretel is a classic story of the devouring mother. She's a witch in a candy house, and she attracts the kids, and she totally spoils them, and then she eats them.
wow.
You know, Hansel and Gretel. It's an old story,
I
full
know
of
there's a
myth.
lot of fairy tales when you think of it now, and they
Yeah,
deal with heavy duty issues. Whoa, you know.
absolutely. And psychological issues. And what's always fascinated me was how a lot of mythologies throughout history across the globe have arisen in different cultures, but the two never met.
Hmm.
Joseph Campbell talks about a lot of those. Now, how did one culture in the very southerly tip of Brazil, and then another culture, northern Siberia, develop the same symbols? You know, there's something fascinating about that. Maybe it's baby Jesus.
Or it could be that in some ways, even though we got different cultures or miles, thousands of miles apart, the human condition is probably identical in every race or every group. Like we all kind of have the same motives and passions and hopes and dreams and angst, and a lot of stuff that goes on in cultures happens in everybody goes through the same thing roughly. Not 100% same, but
Yeah,
you know,
close.
stuff that one culture goes through, we can relate because we go through
Yeah.
it too, you know.
Well, there's that, and I'll go along with that 100%. And there's also the whole Carl Jung thing with the collective unconsciousness. There might be something to that too. Who knows?
Don't know that much about Carl Jung other than the movie. That's the one with Viggo Mortensen plays Sigmund Freud, and Michael Fassbender plays Carl
Haven't
Jung.
haven't
A
seen it.
Dangerous Method. David Cronenberg directed it,
All right.
and it's about the relationship between Carl Jung
Mm-hmm.
and David and Sigmund Freud at the turn of the 20th century. This is pre-World War One, and Freud was sort of like he was a mentor or a example of psychiatry to Jung, but
Yeah.
Jung started going off on his own way.
Yeah.
And Jung also ended up having an affair with one of his patients, whose name was Sabina something, I forget her last name, played by Keira Knightley.
Right.
And so it's an interesting movie. So Carl Jung's character was very interesting, very human, a very human guy. Like a
Yeah.
lot of flaws, but Freud had a lot of flaws. Everybody has flaws, you know.
He had a lot of weird theories, and he wrote well into his 70s. If you wanna really get into Carl Jung, and I find it personally fascinating. I remember the first time I read a book by Carl Jung was 1987. A girlfriend of mine lent me her book, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then we broke up, and I had to give the book back, so I never got to finish it. But it's quite a fascinating topic, and there could be something to it. I don't know, but there's a YouTube channel. If you go to there's this guy from Ireland. He's a young guy. Him and there's another guy. They talk about it. It's called Uber Boyo. Uber Boyo. Just go search it on YouTube if you want to dig into Carl Jung. But I find it fascinating, and it's really all to do with his theories of the collective unconscious and consciousness. And he got into dreams quite a bit too, and he also got into, I think he got into astrology towards the end. Maybe he was just going off the deep end. I don't know, but it's fascinating. So there could be a connection there when we look at all the different mythologies that are sort of weaving its way through humanity across the globe that connects us regardless of geography. I don't know. How do we get into that? We were talking about movies, right?
Yeah, like iconic movies like Godfather, and I guess you can put Casino, Goodfellas, all the Scorsese movies are in some way very iconic. They have
In a
a
sense,
really
yeah.
mass appeal, and I think a lot of it is, I don't know if it's people relate or it's the mass audience really likes the movie. There's something in the movie which strikes a chord with people, and they really like it, and they keep talking about it. You know.
I don't know if Taxi Driver had a big splash the way, say, Avatar did or Star Wars, but it certainly became that in time. Scorsese, of course, is one of his most famous movies, and
Yes.
to this day there are still references to it in memes. You talking to me? You talking to me? And he's almost like the anti-hero in a sense, and yeah. But on that note, I wanted to ask you a question. I want to talk about sci-fi. Okay, just let me mention this.
Sure.
What do you think, and I happen to know this because I remember reading it about somewhere, what do you think is the most popular movie of all time to this date?
Oh my God. The most popular.
Not the one that made the most money, not the
Oh,
one that won the most awards. Just if they went out and cast a wide net across, say, North America and said, tell me your most favorite movie, what would it be? Regardless of how much money it made.
that's a good question because I don't know. There's so many good movies out there. So what is the most popular? There's probably 4 or 5, most likely, that
Take a guess.
people. Well, okay, obviously Star Wars, very popular because you can't stop hearing about Star Wars. You have Star Wars paraphernalia, Star Wars cups, T-shirts, toys, you name it. So yeah, Star Wars. I was going to say Jaws. Jaws is up there. That really.
I'll tell you which one.
Okay.
Shawshank Redemption.
Okay. Very good movie.
I don't know if it won any awards, but it really spoke to a lot of people. So
it did. It is a very good movie.
And that it might have been bumped down to second or third place now. I don't know.
Okay.
But at one time it was the number one most popular.
Oh, okay.
What do you think the most popular album is, or was at least at one time? We're talking popular vote here. Cast a wide net. I'm sure this one's not number one anymore, but it was at one time, and it happened to be my favorite.
Okay.
I'll tell you which one it is. It's U2, The Joshua Tree.
Really?
Yeah, it's an amazing album. One of my favorites.
I was going to say the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
That was a very popular movie too.
It was, and the soundtrack was good. And I was also going to mention probably one of the Led Zeppelin albums, and probably one of the Beatles albums is very. I don't know which the Beatles album, maybe the White Album or Sgt. Pepper's album, but
probably.
I don't think there's one definitive.
Okay, let me ask you this then.
Sure.
Since we're talking about Star Wars, what do you think is, in your opinion, I've got my opinion, I think I mentioned this to you before, what do you think is the best science fiction movie, and also one that might also fit into this realm of timelessness where it just really has an effect the way not the way Avatar did, because Avatar didn't. disappeared like a fart in the wind, it
Yeah.
seemed, in spite of all the money it made in popularity. But movies like The Godfather, or movies like The Matrix, or even Star Wars for that matter, where there was just, wow, that was good. I'd watch it again. I don't think I'd watch Star Wars again. By the way, I want to mention something to you. When Star Wars came out, or the second Star Wars, I forget, but I remember going to the movies. I was really having a hard time in my life, and I think I was hypersensitive, so I could see the little acetate things as the ships were going across the universe. I could see the little squares because they used to have drawings on top of acetate sleeves, and they'd shoot multiple images to create the motion, right? And I could see it. I'm like, can't you see that? Nobody else could see it, but I could see it. It's like I had hypersensitivity. Sometimes I go to a movie in that time, and I'd see the shutter going in the sky, say a
Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. But I was also kind of going crazy at the time too. It was a real hard time in my life. I was going through panic attacks like crazy.
Wow.
So give me your movie and I'll tell you mine.
Okay. 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh,
I must have
man.
seen it at least 12 times. I own 3 versions of it.
Yeah.
When I first I remember buying it in VHS.
Yeah.
And then later on I bought it in VHS widescreen.
Right.
And then I bought the DVD. One of the Blu-ray, I figured, okay, the DVD is good enough. But
yeah,
I thought that movie was, at first, when I was younger, watching it, I found it very boring. But as I got older, it just seemed to be mesmerizing. And I always pick something out differently in the photography, in the frames, every time I watch it. And I also read the book 2001, so that gave me an understanding, more of an understanding of what the movie was about.
Yeah.
But I think that movie was just amazing. It was a mind blower, especially the scene at the end where he ends up going through that monolith dimension, and there's all this psychedelic stuff happening. And back then there was no CGI. This is like 1968. That was pretty amazing. And he must have did a lot of research about physics and dimensions and all that stuff, because it kind of showed all that. And and what I liked about the movie was sound does not travel through space. That's what pisses me off about a lot of movies, sci-fi movies, where you hear the ray guns and the bombs and the rocket. Yeah, no, there's no sound traveling through space. And in 2001, he didn't have any sound, but he had a classical music background to kind of enhance it. And I thought that was really well done.
That's good. I didn't know. I remember when I watched it the first time, I think my wife and I were our first year married, so 24 years ago. I'd never seen it before, but I remember thinking, my God, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. You know, the opening scene with the monkeys and the monolith,
Yes.
It just blew me away. And, we're talking Stanley Kubrick. I don't think my personal favorite, Stanley Kubrick, I don't think there's a better movie guy on this planet.
He's my top director as well.
I mean, he was more than a director, really.
Pardon?
He was more than a director.
Oh, he was quite the auteur. He controlled everything, every frame, he was a bit of a tyrant too. I heard stories about him making actors do 60 takes of one scene and then deciding to go with the first one.
Yeah, and he was like that.
He did Clockwork Orange, and I heard that Malcolm McDowell, main character in Clockwork Orange, had to go through therapy after.
So did the lady character, the mom in The Shining.
Shelley Duvall. Oh yeah.
No, it really had a major psychic effect on her, and like in a really bad way. Like when she was going up the stairs when being chased by her husband, she was literally petrified for real.
Wow.
Yeah, like you said, there was about 50, 60 takes. He would just wear his actors out because he wanted the best from them.
Yeah.
He wanted authenticity. So, but I think, it's hard to beat that movie. But I think for me, Alien was
Alien is a classic.
Yeah, I just love everything about that movie and that story. And as a sci-fi movie, I mean, I could watch it to this day, even though it came out around 1980. I mean, the way it was shot and the way the story developed, and you didn't expect a lot of what happened. It just sort of happened. And it's got a bit of a horror element to it too, right? With
Well, it's a horror movie that takes place in space. You
yeah,
know?
but it's not horrifying. When you look at horror movies, like it's certainly
Yeah.
not in the typical genre of a horror. I like a horror movie that plays on your mind.
Right.
There's people walking through these tunnels, and there's this creature in there somewhere, and it's pitch black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than a guy with a hockey helmet and a chainsaw or a hatchet or whatever, he comes out and he's chasing you. I mean, and he squeezes your brains and your eyes pop out. There's gore for the sake of gore, and there's a slasher movie, which I think are popular. They make a lot of money, whatever, but they're cheap and easy.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
depth to them.
That's true.
But for me, it'd be Aliens. So,
Well, the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think, had a cult following. And the movie itself is not that violent. It's a lot of
no.
it's not bloody. There's only like 4 murders in the movie.
Yeah.
And you don't actually see the chainsaw going through limbs and stuff.
No.
It's all implied, but it's a horrific movie. It's a
horrific.
very creepy movie. Oh my God.
Freaked me out.
Like that stuff could happen. You know,
I think it was loosely based on a true story too.
I think it was based on Ed Gein. Loosely.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And also, what's the other one? The butterfly one.
Silence of the Lambs.
Butterfly one. Signs of the Lamb. The one with the lamb. Yeah. Also based on that same character. And I think an aggregate of serial killers. They sort of like created this avatar, you know. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
For years. The first one.
Yeah, the first one, I saw the remake, which up to a certain point was really good. And then it dragged on with the action sequences, which went on and on and on. And they could have cut it by 10 or 15 minutes. And, you know, they just ruined it. They ruined it for me.
Yeah. So back to 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the implications in that story. Transhumanism, I think, is loosely applied to that, as well as artificial intelligence, because Hal is this like supercomputer, right? And he's a character in the movie.
Yes.
And he's a conniving son of a bitch too. So you remember there's a scene where the 2 astronauts are in the front of the ship, and Hal's got, and they go there and they close the door so Hal can't hear them.
Right.
And Hal's got a, you know, like a spy cam, a camera, and he could see them. And wouldn't you know it, he can read their lips.
Yes, I remember that. Yes, yes.
And then he's on to them because they're sort of like getting a little bit nervous about Hal, and Hal is up to no good. So, which links to a movie I saw a couple of years ago, and I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's called Ex Machina.
Oh yes, I have that in my collection.
Did that movie not blow you away? Now, you know, talking
it bummed
about
me out actually. I was
a bummer out.
Yeah, I watched it. It's like, oh my God. I'm not saying it's a good movie because it's well done, but I did not enjoy it because I did not like the ending. It was an appropriate ending. Like when I did go to film school a long time ago, and one of our instructors would say, just because you don't like a movie doesn't make it a bad movie.
No,
I've watched movies which I didn't like because I didn't like the way it made me feel.
Right.
And I didn't like the subject matter, but it was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was well done because it made me feel really disturbed or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So Ex Machina was like one of those.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. It's very dark.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that was.
Very well done. And it's on the topic of artificial intelligence.
Yes, yeah.
And you got to wonder if that sort of thing can actually happen, and it might. You got guys like Ray Kurzweil who believes in the singularity. He says, by 2030, there's going to come this time and where science and technology is going to become bigger than us, and it's going to take on a life of its own. And then you got guys like the guy who invented the Tesla.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is talking and warning people when he was on Joe Rogan. He
Yes.
was just like warning about AI, and a guy at that level who's talking that way, you got to wonder if like he knows something we don't, and he doesn't really want to explain it to us, because I think Elon is a bit of a genius. Perhaps he sees into the future. I read a saying this morning, and it said, all predictions are wrong.
Okay. You mentioned, okay, so you got Elon Musk, who is, and I've seen YouTube videos of him talking about the dangers of AI.
Yeah.
I read a book by Michio Kaku. I forget, he just had it published within the last 2 years. Michio Kaku is this Japanese physicist, cosmologist. He's on a lot of stuff he's got a lot of books and videos and that. And one of the topics in his book was about AI. And the big question was, is AI going to become a sentient type of being where it has its own autonomous way of looking at things? And he says we're so far from that. Like he said, we don't have to worry about it for quite a while.
But it might happen.
I hope he's right, though. I hope he's right.
Well, like I said, that quote fascinated me. All predictions are wrong.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
But you got those few people who start to theorize, and they sort of can peek into the future. And I put Elon Musk in there, a visionary nevertheless. And there's people like that are far and few between, but maybe he's on to something, and maybe it's just a matter of time. And it could be true. And it could be scary or not. I don't know. It's crazy, and it's all part of this transhumanism. If you look at what transhumanism is defined as, it's because if you look at AI, right, it's obviously artificial intelligence. Well, who created it? And why did we create it? For what end? Well, to serve us. So it's a product of our own being. So you could link it, I think, directly to transhumanism. So do you know anything about transhumanism? You said you read an article about it the other day.
Yeah. There's a danger that we're going to be serving technology as opposed to technology serving us.
Is that what it was saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not about what can the technology do for people. It's like, what can we do? It's like the technology will be kind of our overlord. Example, calculators and people losing their ability to figure things out or think. People are relying too much on technology to calculate and solve problems instead of using their own brains. And there's a danger of that, where people, I call it the thinking muscle, is being atrophied, where we no longer are able to think for ourselves. Like I remember when I was a kid, and you were same age, roughly, we had the multiplications tablets, and a lot of stuff was learned by repetition, and that's stuck inside me. And a lot of times still, when I do calculations, I use a pen and paper.
So you got a good point there with the muscle going weak.
Yeah, it's like the ability to think for yourself, and even this constant, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but as a society, we've lost the ability to be still and quiet, or just be present. I sound like a new age guru, but like you see all these people everywhere you go, they're attached to their cell phones. It's almost like an appendage, like they're born with a cell phone in their hand. And it's like people they have to be distracted, it seems. And that's a shame, because a lot of times I don't want to be distracted. I like being present. Like if I go for a walk or a bike ride, I don't want to have an iPod or or a Walkman or whatever to play music.
A
I
walk
want to be.
what?
Oh, yeah, that's I'm a
What
Luddite.
year are you from?
Yeah, yeah, but
Give me
I
this.
don't want to always have some outside source going into my head. I want to be
Uh,
one with the environment. And
yeah.
sometimes when I go for walks, to me, it's a way of my mind. It's like I don't go out thinking, well, I have an agenda for my walk and I'm going to be thinking and figuring all this stuff out. I'm thinking that when I go for a walk, I'll just let whatever goes on inside my head go on, and it'll work itself out. Like
Yeah.
I'll come to conclusions. I'll get the answer. I just don't work at it, and I'm sure. And I think that doesn't happen very well if you're distracted all the time.
We're losing discipline and stoicism, and
Yeah.
getting weak as a result. And there's always that risk with if AI. I think it's happening. I think what you described with smartphones making us dumb, and this is possibly a step towards what could be an Orwellian future. And everybody's going to get on Soma just to tune out because life is so shitty.
Well, even like some of the technology I think is great. Like people who have lost limbs.
All right,
Now,
but that's different.
okay.
You're talking about the humanity and then our consciousness and our potential, the human potential. You've seen that movie? I forget the name of it, where this guy is frozen and he comes out and he's in the future and everybody's like really stupid.
Idiocracy.
That's it. What a concept.
Yeah, yeah.
Idiocracy. And I think that in many, many ways, there's a lot of truth to that and what's happening to us now because and it happens. I think it's way worse than what you're describing, and I think it's actually happening.
Okay.
Well, that's sort of what I see when you look at, like, philosophy came out from the Greeks, right? Mostly,
Right.
and it was the big struggle. Why are we here? And rationale and all this, and Stoicism and everything else that came out of that, and then that was the start of a new step in the evolution of our minds. So now where are we going? Now we're just into identity politics, and we're into cell phones, and we're into groupthink and
Well, even like working out, you've got these devices like they look like watches where you measure how many steps and your heart rate and this and it's like it's like technology's melding together with your body.
Yep.
And that's scary. Like
well, that is one example of transhumanism. There are many, 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 many areas of transhumanism but that's at the bio level.
Or even I've seen people like let's say, I can't think of the artist, but an old singer who's been dead for 40 or 50 years, they're able to get a video of him, and then they do this holographic,
right?
Or they make a video of him singing with his daughter together. And like the guy's been dead for 50 years, but there he is singing with his daughter.
Right.
And to me, that's really creepy.
That's kind of creepy.
Not right, you know?
So when you look at transhumanism and all of that stuff, it's always fascinated me because when I was a kid, I remember reading The Third Wave. Do you remember Future Shock? It came out in the 70s.
I never read it, but I heard a lot about it. That was a really Alvin Toffler, I think, was
that's the dude.
Yeah, yeah.
And his second book was called The Third Wave, and I just love that stuff because they're sort of predicting trends and future events, and he was kind of pretty close. And when you look at transhumanism and what it means, like I said, it's a pretty big area. It's massive, and it encompasses so many things. But the one area that I think, besides the one that you just talked about, technology is making us stupider, I think.
Yeah.
And
it's all about the technology. I remember I've got 4 years experience working in different call centers. And I don't know if this is technology or transhumanism, but so I did a lot of customer support or technical support where customers call in. and to get their issue resolved. And the higher ups were always on us to clear the queue. Now the queue is kind of like this electronic queue where all the calls come in and they're waiting to get the next agent. And the moment an agent is available, it automatically forwards a call there. And it seemed like the issue wasn't to resolve the problem, because sometimes some issues took an hour, maybe 2 hours. I remember being on a phone for 2 hours trying to fix something,
Right.
a customer fix something. And the managers or the team leads, they call them. Team leads are like the front line. They're just one level above the agent. They've got enough experience to walk around and give advice and stuff. They'd be like all antsy, like, how long you been on that call? 47 minutes. Well, can you wrap it up? No, this is an issue we got to have solved. So the big thing was, it's the queue that needs to be cleared. That's the focus. And call handle time, that was called call handle time. They wanted you to maintain a certain amount of call handle time. And
to what end?
To clear the queue, because they were paid on how many how many calls they got through.
Okay.
It's all numbers.
It was for profit.
Yes, for profit.
Profit driven. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And what else was there that was really annoying? Oh, okay. So I'm a little getting off topic, but
it's all good, man.
You had kind of a script, like a loosely based script, but you have to follow certain an opening. You have to open, hi, you've reached blah blah blah. My name is so and so. How may I help you? Then at the end, you always had to say, thank you for, have I resolved the reason for your call? You have to say that.
Right.
And then you say, well, thank you for calling, blah, blah, blah. Now, they have this thing called QAs, which are like quality assurance, where you get 2 or 3 calls each week, monitored and graded to see how you're doing, and they have all this criteria of marking, and a pass is 85.
Right.
I usually was around 85, 88 on average. And I always lost marks for never saying, have I resolved the reason for your call?
Yeah.
And my way of thinking was, I'm a bit of a rebel. So I thought to myself, well, this issue is obviously fixed. He knows it's resolved. What the hell am I supposed to, like, I feel like I'm being redundant or something. Like, it's fixed. It's working. Have I resolved the reason of your call? And later on, I found out that, well, I don't know. Nobody told me this, but I think the reason, it's my own conclusion, you had to say that was so that if the customer calls back and wants legal action, it's on tape because everything's recorded. Well, he asked them if the call was resolved and he said yes. Well, then you've got that. So what has that to do with transhumanism? It just seems like it's more, we're worried about the system and how the system works as opposed to what it does for us. The system is what's important, not what.
Yeah.
It's like what's his name? The medium is the message. That type of scenario.
Somebody just posted an article by Marshall McLuhan.
Yeah.
In this, I'm in a Jordan B. Peterson liberal discussion group on Facebook, and somebody just posted an article about him.
Okay.
Yeah, his son's a photographer, by the way. I know him personally.
Whose son?
Marshall McLuhan.
Oh, okay.
The medium is the message.
Yes.
And what's all that got to do with transhumanism? I don't know. It's you're saying that there's this system that needs to be honored and sort of worked up for what end? When I hear you talk about that and that system, I'm thinking to myself, they probably need to have that box checked and confirmed, hopefully to the positive, so that they can say, look, here's our success rate, therefore we can charge more money and get more clients. This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Like, look at algorithms. Like, I hear that word a lot lately, the algorithms on YouTube or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're being monitored by whatever keystrokes you put in or what you're watching. So there's some sort of mysterious algorithm which is monitoring everybody and then kind of deciding, well, this guy kind of watches, let's say, for instance, a guy watches nothing but blacksmith videos. Okay.
Right. Good example.
So you know, on the side on YouTube on the screen, all of a sudden he'll be getting suggested blacksmith videos.
Yeah.
Even like when you're typing, you're Googling something, and after a while, it's like predictive text in a way. Like you start typing, and they'll come up with something that you're thinking of typing in, and like, how do they know that? Like, you know, it's creepy, you know.
I don't know how any of that applies to transhumanism, but if I had to stretch into it, I would say I would make the link to AI. So if
Yes, yeah.
AI,
To me, AI and transhumanism are kind of like together.
so if your AI is safe, it's developed, and let's say AI has developed to the level where there are there's a little bit of skullduggery going on, and they have an agenda, just like Hal did, where he conspired, you know, and all of a sudden YouTube and its algorithms knows this, and they're like, okay, we're going to get Henry to convert his thinking and go into a different direction, and we're going to subtly feed him these videos with this agenda in mind for whatever, I don't know, I'm just giving you an example, I'm pulling that out of the air, which would be really dark and ex machina-ish. That movie was dark.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah. So, okay, I'm seeing the connection there. Well, you're talking about you working in a call center and all of that and algorithms and tying it all together. And I could even point out examples like when you look at the stents, people put, you know, doctors put stents in people's hearts. And that's, you know, interference in a sense with technology to further life. So in a loose sense, at a very sort of a primitive primal level, there's transhumanism at play. But one can argue when you're talking about biology, one can argue that the condition it's trying to resolve could have easily been avoided for the most part, at least up to about the 99 percentile or more, because all these people who are getting this done, the alternative is to have a heart attack and die. But we don't want them to die. We want to have an operation. We want to live longer. But maintenance is the big one, and that is that if you wouldn't have eaten so much garbage in your life, you wouldn't have developed all that plaque in your arteries, and that likely would not have happened. So it's almost like, okay, we're going to eat sugar, our teeth are going to rot. That's okay. We're going to pull the teeth out, and we got these fake teeth we're going to put in. And that's exactly what like a stent is, to give you an analogy that metaphorically works, because all we're doing is they're putting this like metal meshing in there, and where the plaque was built up, and they're inflating it so the blood can flow. But nobody talks about, well, at least for the most part, not in the mainstream industry, medical industry, the prevention and what is needed. And I bring up that example sort of to beg the question, how much technology and using technology to improve, because that's what transhumanism is all about, is creating technology and applying technology to enhance the human experience. And you can branch it off, man. You can branch it off into politics, social studies. You can branch it off into all different areas, and physical health being one of them. And yeah, it's a tough call, because us humans, in the end, the way I see it, we're just a bunch of monkeys running around. We're just a bunch of apes. We're very, very primitive, and we came through millions and millions of years of evolution. Whether or not there's a God or not, or a higher intelligence, that's besides the point. Like, I'm not talking about that. That could be there, maybe it's not there. But when you talk about our basic condition, and referencing back to what you said, that movie, and people being plugged in and getting stupider and stupider. So we're going to get lazier and lazier. We're just going to depend on the technology, and we're not going to develop as humans.
You know, it's funny. I just thought of this. You ever watched the movie Forbidden Planet?
No.
Okay. So it was made in 1956, and there's a scene where they have this machine created by another alien race which vanished. Mm-hmm. And when you go into the machine, it will boost your IQ. you become like super smart. However, it's a painful process and you might end up dying. It's a physical pain. This guy puts this thing on his head and he's sitting in the machine, and he's like, oh, screaming and everything and retching and just vibrating, but he gets smarter. But
Right.
it was like it knocks him right out.
Right.
So back then, even in the 50s, the idea of transhumanism or artificial intelligence was around.
So that story, was there an issue where people were like, I don't want to go through that much pain, even though at the end I'm going to become smarter? Was that an issue there?
No, that was just part. That was a small
Okay.
part of the movie. There was a lot more. That wasn't the main gist of the movie. That was just one scene.
All right. Because that would be an interesting story right there. And it's very much what Tony Robbins used to talk about. You know, we want to avoid pain much more than we want to gain pleasure.
Sure.
The avoidance of pain is a driving force in our lives. So
another thing I've heard is people in the future may be able to download their consciousness into a computer database, so you achieve more immortality. So your body's gone, but your psyche, and is your psyche and your soul the same thing? I don't know, but your consciousness is downloaded into, let's say, a memory stick or something, whatever. And then a few thousand years, maybe in 100 years or so, society is able to, let's say, raise human bodies without heads. Just okay, I want the body of a bodybuilder type guy who's 6'3", and so they have this generic body, and then they put your consciousness in it, and there you are. You're alive in somebody else's in a body that was just made.
Who knows?
That's
way ahead of your time there. That's sci-fi transhumanism.
Also, I read this book once where one of the characters was this woman who had a really horrible childhood. She was like sexually abused, and all sorts of nasty things happened to her. And she grew up to become an astronaut.
Right.
And she was so sick of being a human. She was always in emotional pain or whatever. And so she decided to become part of a spaceship.
Really?
So her psyche was downloaded into the AI or the piloting device of a spaceship. So she's part of a spaceship. She's a conscious spaceship. And so they're heading towards this star system. And for some reason, I don't remember, but the crew on the ship somehow have offended or annoyed her. So she opens up the airlocks and deposits them out into space and kills them.
She's worse than hell. Maybe
yeah. So that was kind of interesting,
Never piss off a feminist spaceship consciousness.
Yes. Yeah. She kind of jettisons them out into space.
So, since I said the F word, Ex Machina sort of had that sort of radical, extreme feminist, women taking over, because the character was a woman, and there was sort of that underline, and it made me wonder about the whole story as well.
I didn't take it as a feminist story.
It's almost like a subplot, though, and it's like,
I can see how you would think that, but to me, it was just she was an individual entity or character or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't look at her as being a feminist. I just looked at her as being an evil android type robot.
Yeah, but throughout the movie, there was others like her and previous iterations of this.
All right, okay,
and they almost like implied that they were being abused, and there was sort of like this revenge thing. So,
okay, I can see that. I
I thought of that. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but in the realm of science fiction, and if AI ever gets to that point, whether or not it does, who knows, it was pretty intense, and it had a lot of layers to it. So
yeah.
But that was intense. And I thought that because of the story, and it, you had the gender issues there.
Yes. Yeah.
And you had the young guy and the old guy. The old guy was the genius, and the young guy was was there to play along and look up to the genius. And
The genius was a real piece of work too.
he was, but
Like, he was not a likable character.
But like a lot of these guys who are multi-billionaire geniuses, they're sort of eccentric to begin with. It's almost like they get a pass.
Yeah.
But the young guy was the key to the robots.
Yeah.
Devious plan.
Yeah. He was like a pawn.
And he fell hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Which brings up so many different questions regarding our humanity and our emotions and everything, and to what level do we need to, and where do we apply transhumanism technology? And there's a lot of different areas that touch on transhumanism. Let me give you a couple here from Wikipedia. There's anarcho-transhumanism, libertarian transhumanism, democratic transhumanism, techno-trans, progressivism. That's political ideologies. There's extropianism, immortalism, post-genderism. That one sounds kind of freaky, where we're talking about like there's like going to be no more sexuality, I guess. Post-politism, singularitism, which is obviously Ray Kurzweilianism, techno-Gaianism, and abolitionism, some big words there. But all in all, transhumanism is a bit of a thing where we could be in the very early evolutionary stages of it.
I believe we are. And here's the bit of a segue into the next topic, but it's still with transhumanism and AI. One school of thought I've read and watched about is that, let's say we do have an alien encounter, or we get visited from another civilization.
Right.
One school of thought is most likely it'll be an artificial intelligence, like a probe, or it'll be like it won't be the actual beings. It'll be machines on behalf of the beings. Or perhaps you get some really intelligent civilization that has evolved into kind of like a hybrid of machines and, humans or whatever, proto-humans.
Possible.
And, because, the distances in space are so vast that even if you achieve light speed or near light speed, it still takes hundreds or thousands of years to go between star systems, and between galaxies, you're looking at millions of years. Oh, and I'd also like to make a correction. My last podcast, I said that the universe is 96 light years in diameter. Right. I meant to say 96 billion light years.
Oh, okay.
So anybody in the comments, that was my bad.
How do we know it's that big, though? I mean, because apparently it's expanding and you can't even see the outer perimeters because it's going away from us.
Well, they do see the outer perimeters. The outer perimeter, I think, is the, what do you call it? The microwave background radiation map.
Right. I thought that was looking at the history of the universe.
Well, it is, but that's like almost 13.8 billion years ago.
Okay, what about this part of the universe you were talking about earlier about
Botay's void?
What do you call it?
Botay's. It's spelled BOOTES. It's got two little dots above the O, so I don't know if it's Swedish or Finnish, or it's the
kinda
word.
It's kind of like Motley Crue.
The name is from another nationality, and it's pronounced Botay's void. They discovered that, I think, in the 1980s, early 80s. It's a section of the universe which is about this section is about 700 million light years from us, and it's about 300 million light years in diameter. And for that amount of space in the universe, there should be at least 2,000 galaxies.
Right.
This is a very sparse. They found maybe 60 galaxies in that section of the universe. And that's comparable to, let's say you travel across Canada and you find 60 continents spread apart. Coniston is a suburb of Sudbury, where we're from, but
Very small.
yeah, small, very sparse,
Couple
and
hundred people.
yeah, so it's a section of the universe which is like an anomaly because
Yeah.
everybody else there's clusters and that, and this is just it's not a true void because there are 60 galaxies, but in a place that size there should be at least 2,000 galaxies.
It's an anomaly.
Yes, and
Yeah.
one speculation is that it could be part of a type 3 Kardashev civilization. Now, Kardashev was this Russian guy, scientist, and he came up with this way of classifying how advanced are certain civilizations. A type 1 is the type of civilization that is able to have total control of its home planet and able to use all its resources. We are at 0.75. He figures we might have another 100 years before we get this type 1.
Wow.
A type 2 civilization is a civilization that is able to control all the energy and everything in their solar system. They can control their sun. They can get power from the sun, and one way of doing it is called the Dyson sphere, where there are these things that are built. They're artificial. They kind of cover the sun or surround the sun, and they just suck the energy out. And then type 3 civilization is a civilization that's able to harness and control the entire galaxy it's in. Wow. Now, one school of thought is that Bote's void is the result of a type 3 civilization. Very advanced civilization that is probably using a massive cloaking device or there's Dyson spheres all over the place covering up the stars. Uh-huh. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. And then I'm also thinking, okay, so you got a really a really advanced civilization that is able to control parts of the galaxy. Uh-huh. Now they probably have a lot of AI, and maybe they've gone past their human or whatever stage.
They're all spaceships. They're
all computers and spaceships, and they've been programmed to just like spread out and Dyson sphere the whole universe,
Crazy.
And they replicate, they go to asteroids and they mine them and build more Dyson spheres, and who knows, maybe in a 10 billion years, half the universe will be like a void.
Who knows?
Anyways, I thought that was interesting.
It is. We're expanding. The universe is expanding. Plus, you got that whole transhumanism thing, and Elon Musk. And you heard of Buckminster Fuller?
I've heard of the name. I don't know about him. I don't know who that is.
He created the geodesic dome. He's a bit of a genius by his own right. And I remember reading I bought a few books in the early 90s, and I started reading one. And he was talking about how he believed that humans at one point in time were visited by aliens, and aliens planted their seed amongst us, and we evolved from that. And I read that thinking, that's a damn possibility. It
could be.
And it occurred to me that this guy's way out there, but I mean, it's fun to be way out there, and at least or read about guys like that and think about the possibilities or the creative options that involve humanity. So, but on that note, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is Tony Robbins a cuck?
Cuckold. Try to explain to people what a cuck is.
No, you explain it. I think a cuck is a male who's subservient to women and trips all over himself to please them, and he's not really definitely. He's like a beta male.
Okay, let me elaborate. That is part of being a cuck, but I think a cuck is also somebody who lets people walk all over them.
Okay.
And they bend to the will of institutions.
All right.
And employers. It's not just having to, doing what a woman wants you to do all the time.
Yeah. I took it more in that line. That's the way I always thought.
Yeah, that is cuckoldry is it's a term for a person who is cheated on by his wife. His wife cheats. And I think and
he doesn't do anything about it.
No, that's right. And I think that came from where there's a species of bird that would sit on the eggs, or I think it was a male part of the bird species that would, it wasn't even his partner's eggs. He would like,
there's a
he would
cut
like
for you.
take care of the eggs of another partner. So it's
So
kind of,
the reason I bring that up, and I
yeah,
love Tony Robbins. I mean, I
yeah,
bought his personal power program in the
okay,
late 80s, and it literally was one of the reasons why I changed my life.
okay,
So I don't want to take it in the wrong way. This is,
yeah,
and if you get a chance, watch his movie called "I Am Not Your Guru."
okay.
It's, if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's a good documentary.
I
I
don't
like.
know enough about Tony Robbins to know whether he's a cuck or not. Honestly, I don't know.
No, the only reason I
I
bring
can't
that
answer
up,
that.
that thought occurred to me a few
Yeah,
weeks ago. I was
yeah,
thinking
okay,
about, I was just thinking about Tony Robbins, because back in the day, in the late 80s, when he came on the scene and he became very, very popular and infomercials and all that, he married a girl who had 3 kids. And I thought, well, most men in their 20s would not do that for the
okay. Yeah, I
most
see that.
part.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, when you're talking about some of the advice that comes from people in the manosphere, and is the advice that's given a young man is, you know, you start your own family for the most part.
yeah.
I've I've seen people get married, and they've married women with a kid mostly, but a woman with 3 kids, that'd be like, I don't know. So it just I was having fun with it is all.
Okay, no, no,
But
I could. Yeah,
I want,
maybe in that era, like, is Jeff Bezos a cuck?
why?
Okay, so okay, here's a. I don't know Jeff Bezos personally. Never heard of him until last year.
Yeah,
But you heard about his divorce. He's the richest guy in the world.
yeah,
I think he owns or runs Amazon.
right. He does, yeah.
Anyways, so he's been married to this woman for over 20 years. And so he starts screwing around with this woman named Lauren Sanchez, also known as Dirty Sanchez. Very hot looking older lady.
Yeah.
Well, Bezos is in his 50s. Sanchez is in her late 40s. Seen pictures are very attractive. And so he starts cheating on his wife with Lauren Sanchez.
Yeah.
And so his wife files for divorce. She gets, I don't know if she got half of his billions, but
Yeah.
she's probably got the best divorce settlement ever in the history of divorce settlements.
That's the law.
Now, he wants to marry Lauren Sanchez, and she too was cheating on her husband while she was cheating with.
Oh my God.
And
He's a cuck.
in the manosphere, which anybody wants to know what the manosphere is, it's YouTube channels and websites dealing with men's issues. That's the best way I can describe it.
And I've always been intrigued by that topic since I was a young man myself, reading books in the 80s on that topic, you know, Herb Goldberg being one of them.
And the big thing about Lauren Sanchez is in the manosphere, a lot of the people in the manosphere, I guess the authorities or the content creators, I shouldn't say authorities, but they're saying that she's after his money, hypergamy at its finest.
Okay, well let's leave it at that. And next one we're going to talk about cuckoldery,
oh boy,
hypergamy, and femcells, because you mentioned that at the start.
Well, incels as well. We need that as a context.
No, well, yeah, incels and femcells and the descriptions thereof.
Yes.
All right.
Sounds good.